This happened in 2013. I was 21 years old at the time and I had no idea what I was getting into. I'd just booked a solo trip to Los Angeles. I was staying at a place called the Cecil Hotel. Yeah, I know, the name already gives it a weird vibe. The hotel was infamous, known for its dark and unsettling history, but I didn't really think much of it. I was just trying to have a nice, quiet trip. I was tired from my long flight, so I didn't think twice when I checked into my room and took a nap to recover. The next few days were pretty uneventful. I walked around the city, ate some good food, and did the usual tourist stuff. But then something strange happened. I noticed that the elevator on my floor would randomly stop and open on its own, even when no one was waiting to get on. I didn't think too much of it at first. I mean, the building was old. Things like that happen sometimes, right? But then, one night, I was headed back to my room when I stepped into that same elevator. It was late, probably around 2 a.m., and there was no one else around. The doors closed behind me, and I pressed the button for my floor. But just as the elevator started to ascend, something felt off. The lights flickered for a moment, and I felt an odd sense of unease. It wasn't just the weird elevator. Something in the air felt heavy. I don't know how to describe it, but it was like the elevator had a life of its own. I looked up at the mirror across from me and saw my reflection, but it felt distorted. The elevator made a strange creaking noise as it passed each floor. I started feeling paranoid, like I wasn't alone. My heart raced, and I kept glancing over my shoulder, convinced that something was behind me. That's when I heard it. A strange noise coming from the corner of the elevator. At first it was just a low rustle, like the sound of someone shifting their position. But when I turned to look, there was nothing there. No one. The elevator was completely empty except for me. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was probably just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then, the elevator stopped. I hadn't pressed the button for the next floor. It just stopped on its own. The doors slid open, and I was greeted by nothing but a dimly lit hallway. It felt ... wrong. I stepped out, but before I could even move, the doors slammed shut behind me. And I swear, for a split second, I heard a faint giggle. It wasn't a laugh. It wasn't a noise I could explain. It was just ... there. I was about to press the elevator button again when I saw something strange out of the corner of my eye. I looked down the hallway and saw a woman standing in front of another elevator, but she was acting so weirdly that it made my stomach churn. She was shifting back and forth, peering in and out of the elevator, almost as if she was looking for something or someone. I watched her for a second, and that's when I saw it. The way she moved. It was unsettling. It was like she was not all there. I couldn't take my eyes off her, and before I knew it, I was walking toward her without even realizing it. She saw me, and then she suddenly stopped, staring straight ahead, almost like she was waiting for something. I was about to call out to her when something stopped me. Something made me hesitate. It was as if a cold chill ran down my spine. Without a word, she turned and walked toward the stairwell. I watched her disappear into the shadows. The next day I saw it, the elevator footage. It was everywhere on social media, in the news, all over the place. At first I didn't understand why, but then I watched the video and felt my heart drop. It was the woman from last night, the one who had been acting so strange. In the footage, she was standing in the same elevator, but she wasn't just waiting. She was pressing buttons frantically, looking over her shoulder, peeking out into the hallway as if someone was following her. I remember thinking, what's going on? Who is she? But then, the most chilling part was when she stepped out of the elevator. She walked to the side, still glancing nervously, then just like that she vanished. No one knew where she went. The video didn't show her leaving the building. There was no trace of her. The hotel staff went into a frenzy. The police were called, people were searching for her for days, but no one found anything, no one had any answers. And then, the water issue started. Guests began complaining about the water pressure being low, and there was something wrong with the taste of the water. That's when maintenance was called to check the water tanks on the roof, and that's when they found her. Her body was floating in the water tank. She had been there for days, and no one had any idea how she ended up there. The hatch to the tank was open. How? Why? There were so many questions, but no answers. The coroner ruled her death an accidental drowning, but the thing that still haunts me and so many others is the footage, the weird behavior, the mystery of how she got into that tank, why no one heard her, and why no one saw anything unusual. To this day, I still don't understand it. The elevator video is still one of the most haunting things I've ever seen, and it's made me question everything. What was she running from? Was someone following her? Was it something or someone ... not human? This is one of those stories I wish I could forget. I've never been a skeptic when it comes to the supernatural, but after what happened in 1977, I became a firm believer. I was 15 years old at the time, living in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Enfield, London. My family wasn't particularly religious, but we were a tight-knit group, and we never had any reason to believe that anything strange could happen to us. That was until the night everything changed. It all started with a series of odd noises. My mum was the first to hear it. At first it was just soft knocks. like someone tapping on the walls. She thought it was the house settling or maybe the pipes. But as days passed, the sounds grew louder and more disturbing. They were no longer just knocks. They were crashes, things sliding across the floor, objects moving on their own. The house felt like it was alive. I remember the first night the furniture started moving. I was sitting in the living room reading when suddenly our couch started shifting across the floor. I thought I was imagining things. It couldn't be happening. I thought I was just tired, or maybe the house had a faulty foundation. But when the couch slid again, this time in front of me, with no one near it, I froze. I stood there, staring at it, unsure of what to do. I tried calling out for my mum, but the words wouldn't come. I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. That night, things escalated. The knocking was louder, and it sounded like it was coming from the walls. I could feel the vibration under my feet. Then, to make things worse, the sound shifted. It became voices. The first time I heard the voice, it was faint, like it was coming from another room. At first, it just sounded like murmuring. But as it grew louder, I heard a voice clearly say my name. It wasn't my mom or my sister, it was something deeper, more guttural, something ... wrong. I was terrified. I ran into my mom's room, but she wasn't there. I didn't know where she had gone, but I could hear the sounds of movement coming from her room, too. The house was filled with noise, and none of it made sense. The following days were even stranger. I was staying in my sister's room with her, and we were trying to sleep when we felt the bed shift beneath us. At first it was gentle, but then it became violent. The bed started to shake like someone was standing underneath it and pushing it upward. We both screamed, and that's when we heard it. The laughter. It wasn't the sound of someone enjoying themselves, it was a cruel, mocking laugh that echoed through the house, and it felt as though it came from all directions. As time passed, things became more chaotic. My two younger sisters, Janet and Margaret, started claiming that something was physically touching them. They would wake up with scratches, bruises, and marks that no one could explain. It wasn't long before we started seeing things we couldn't explain. Shadows moving, doors opening and closing by themselves, and the feeling of being watched, even when no one was there. One night, things went too far. Janet and Margaret were playing in the living room when suddenly, they started screaming. I ran to see what was happening, but what I saw made my blood run cold. Janet was floating in the air, her body stiff and motionless, like a rag doll suspended in midair. Her eyes were wide open, staring into nothingness. Margaret, standing beside her, was screaming in terror, unable to move. I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. My mind raced, but I couldn't find an explanation for what was happening. How was this possible? How was she floating? The paranormal activity escalated in the weeks that followed. The knocks, the voices, the strange occurrences, they all became worse. There were nights when Janet would be lifted off the ground and dragged across the room. On other nights, we'd hear banging sounds that shook the windows, the doors rattling so violently that we thought they would break. We reached out for help. We contacted local paranormal investigators, but when they arrived, they didn't believe us. They thought it was just a hoax, or that my sisters were playing tricks. But as the activity continued, even the most skeptical of them began to change their minds. The team from the Society for Psychical Research (SPR) eventually arrived to investigate. They documented everything: the strange noises, the floating, the inexplicable happenings. They interviewed us and recorded the events, and some of the footage still sends chills down my spine to this day. The footage was Roryland. You could see the terror in our eyes as we tried to make sense of the chaos around us. At times it felt like we weren't in control anymore. It wasn't just the strange occurrences, it was the overwhelming feeling that something was following us, watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. Despite all the footage and evidence, people still questioned what happened. Some claimed that we were just seeking attention, that it was all part of some elaborate prank, but the investigators, those who experienced it firsthand, knew the truth. What happened in that house was real. The spirits or entities, whatever they were, had taken control. The media caught wind of the story, and it quickly became one of the most publicized paranormal cases in history. It wasn't long before Hollywood got a hold of it, turning it into a film, The Conjuring 2, but let me tell you, the real story is far more unsettling than any movie could ever portray. There are things that happened inside that house that will haunt me forever. The worst part, we never got answers. We never figured out why it happened. And to this day, I wonder if those things are still out there waiting for the next family to come along. I'll never forget that night. It was late, and I had just moved into a new house with my newborn son and our dog. The house wasn't big, but it was cozy. The kind of place that makes you feel like you could settle down for a fresh start. It was an old home, with creaky floors and worn-out walls, but to me it had character. My son was just a few months old, and I was still adjusting to life as a new mum. The days were long, and the nights were harder, especially when I had to do everything on my own. It was Halloween night, and there was a crisp chill in the air. I had just gotten my baby settled in his crib and was about to turn in for the night. The dog, a big German shepherd, was lounging on the floor near me, his head resting on his paws. I was exhausted but relieved to finally have some quiet time after a hectic day of unpacking and setting up the house. That's when it happened. I was just about to close my eyes when I heard the unmistakable sound of the back door rattling. At first it was faint, almost like the wind was blowing against it, but then it grew louder. The rattling was insistent, like someone was trying to open the door. My heart dropped into my stomach. I lay still for a few seconds, listening. It was the dead of night. No one should have been outside. I slowly got up from the bed, trying to make as little noise as possible. The dog was still lying there, but I could see his ears perk up. He could sense it too. I glanced over at the crib where my son lay asleep, safe and sound, and I moved cautiously toward the back door. I peeked through the window beside the door, trying to see who or what was out there. But all I saw was the dark outline of the yard. There was no movement, no sign of anyone. Still, the rattling didn't stop. My heart was pounding in my chest now, and a cold sweat broke out on my neck. There was something wrong, something deeply unsettling about this. I stood there for a few moments, holding my breath, trying to hear if anything else was going on. And then I heard something else, a faint whisper, barely audible at first, but it was there. It was soft, but unmistakable. "Help me." It sent a chill up my spine. My first instinct was to run, to grab my son and leave. But then the whisper came again, louder this time. "Help me, please." I couldn't tell where it was coming from. It wasn't from the yard, no. It was coming from inside the house, near the door. I stepped back, heart racing. The dog, usually calm, started barking aggressively. But then, as suddenly as it had started, the barking stopped. The room went dead silent. My blood ran cold. I stood there in the dark, holding my breath, trying to figure out what to do next. Then it happened. Something grabbed my leg. It wasn't a hand or a human touch, but something cold, something unnatural. I froze. For a moment, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but it was real. I could feel it tightening around my ankle, pulling me towards the door. I looked down in horror, and to my shock, I saw the dog, standing in the doorway, his eyes wide with panic. He barked once, as if warning me to stay away from whatever was lurking near the door. My heart raced, and I began to shake. I pulled my leg away from the cold grip, stumbling back. The whispers were growing louder now. Surrounding me, I stumbled backward, feeling the cold air brush against my skin. But then I realized something even worse. The whispers weren't from a ghost. They weren't from an entity. They were coming from the back door. Without thinking, I turned and sprinted down the hall to check on my son. As I entered the room, I saw something I couldn't process at first. My baby wasn't in his crib. A rush of panic flooded me, but before I could react, I heard the front door open. The cold air hit my skin like a slap. I ran back into the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. When I saw him, it was my father. He had collapsed by the back door, his body limp and unresponsive. He was barely conscious, struggling to breathe. It was then that the truth hit me like a freight train. My father had suffered a stroke in the middle of the night. He had somehow managed to crawl to the back door, desperate for help, but his strength had failed him. The rattling door, the whispers, the eerie cold, all of it had been a result of him trying to get my attention. I knelt down beside him, frantic tears welling up in my eyes. He was still breathing, but barely. I called for help, dialing 911 in a panic. The paramedics arrived in a matter of minutes, but it felt like hours. They rushed him to the hospital, and by the grace of God, he survived. But that night, I had experienced something I could never forget. What had started as a terrifying supernatural experience had turned into a nightmare rooted in the harsh reality of life. There was no ghost, no dark entity haunting my house, just my father, suffering and in need of help. I'll never forget that night. I still hear the rattling door sometimes, but now it's not something that fills me with fear. It's a reminder that sometimes the scariest things aren't ghosts at all. It's the things that happen when we're least expecting them. If you've ever had a strange or terrifying experience that you can't explain, don't keep it to yourself. Share your story with us in the comments below or send us an email. We'd love to hear what you've been through. And remember, always stay vigilant. You never know what could be lurking just around the corner. If you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another terrifying tale. Stay safe, stay aware, and keep watching your surroundings.